I gotta shuffle. Which way? This way? This way? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe if you sat where you said you were gonna sit, you'd be all set.
Hello
We're
and
both
welcome.
gonna be constantly moving back and forth, like left
I
and
know.
right
I
and
know.
up and down.
It's a bad habit.
I'm gonna just hang out back here. So what's up?
Yeah,
There we go.
it is tough panels
go.
because you're so used to like widescreen everything, and then we do the opposite.
Yep.
You know, like, you
Yeah.
see more
slide
of
size.
it's because I used to have my forehead on camera, so we needed more real estate up here. But now I wear a hat, so
Yeah.
So hello and welcome to Griefers Pub. As you guys can tell, we have a guest tonight. I'm your host, Dad, and then along with me we have Elder.
oh, I'm Elder. Nice to meet you.
So tonight we're gonna be discussing the current flight model and how it's affected playability and player interest with our special guest, Jonathan Winters. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, what?
Welcome, buddy. Welcome.
Yeah. No, I'm just glad to have you on the show. I heard that. So this is something I know about Elder. When I had to join his org, there was this whole thing where I had to watch 42 of your videos to join his org because
Wait, did you see that video?
Elder, I didn't. Dude, Elder, I didn't know that was your org, dude. I've heard about that.
So yeah, there was. This is a river.
Oh, bro, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the sharing of my foot.
So I was gonna say this is where the whole joke comes from. Is from a while ago. I don't know if there's gonna be audio, but
there is.
Yep. Okay.
Next we have Grim42. Our friends over at Grim42 seem to be making quite a comeback. I love to see that. For a while, we assumed that the 42 stood for the amount of points they would usually score in BR, but now it's confirmed. It's the amount of Jonathan Winter videos you need to watch before joining the org. Now let's transition from the PvP org.
All right.
Yeah, bro, that guy killed it with that video. That video was so funny,
It's
man.
such a good
He
one.
had so many good points. Yeah, he nailed it.
I hear he's a real asshole in real life, but whatever.
We deal with him all the time now.
Video
just
was on
kidding.
point, dude.
So I was gonna say, John, how long have you played Star Citizen? And tell us a little bit about your history as a content creator.
Man, I've been making videos for a very, very long time. I actually used to make this thing called gloving videos years ago. I'm not gonna go too into it, but I used to go by Mind Games. For anybody who still knows who that is, I completely deleted it after some time, but it was fun. But that's what really told me or taught me how to be cinematic with a lot of the footage that I use. And that's how, I do what I do now. But originally I played Star Citizen back like 3.0 when it was just a hangar or something like that. And eventually I didn't touch it again until we really got the first taste of like really high skill ceiling PvP, which I think was 13, 10, 11, somewhere around there. And that's back when people like, I think they were called Angels of the Warp or something like that. Don't remember, but those guys were phenomenal. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me how to play it. And all I did was struggle every single day because nobody knew how to explain anything. So it's just like trial and tribulation. Just keep trying till you figure it out. And one day, something just clicked where I understood that if you use the pip as a form to calculate where they're moving, it actually shows you how to move in space. And that's how I created most of my videos. And most of my footage revolves around using that as a tool to help you learn.
So you focus a little bit more on like creating tutorials and guides for players in PvP, to my understanding.
Yeah, I've always liked teaching. Even when I did the gloving thing, I love teaching. I think it's fun to share that stuff, and I think it's fun when other people share it. So it's not so much about who has these secret techniques that they don't want to share. It's more about like, okay, who knows the techniques, and now how do we make it better, and how do we improve on it? So I've always been very pro to sharing any knowledge you have to help further the skill and make it easier for new people coming in and learning.
So I know that you also recently posted a video in the last week or so. Can we check out maybe some of the highlights from that and take a look at that?
Yeah. Whatever you'd like to share, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the only strategy that makes master modes fun. I'm gonna keep off the audio so we can kind of talk about it in the background a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So this is your first video in what, maybe a few months now, or when was the last
Almost
time
a
you
year.
posted? Almost a year. Go ahead, Elder. You were gonna say something.
No, it was going to be one of my lame jokes. I'll just
No,
Because
no,
it's a
it's a winning joke. I wanna
dad
hear it.
joke.
Let's
Let's
hear it.
pass.
Should have just hit it.
Yeah, continue with your question, please.
The question is, so while we're playing this, was master modes a deciding factor in your extended break from content creation?
Partially, I wouldn't say it was because of master modes directly. I would say it's more 'cause Star Citizen sucks. But of course, a lot of that is because of master modes.
It's
I
like
think
that's good. I like that. That's perfect.
the biggest thing that killed it for me is they've been neutering PvP constantly. Like, there's
Yeah.
no place to like really go and find combat. Hopefully, we're getting that again with Pyro, with these new zones for making money or whatever. But
Mhm.
we'll see how it plays out.
I gotta do something. I bet, guys.
What's that?
1 second.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no
All
worries.
right. Well, it looks like he lost his audio. Because Dad convinced me that this is like the best option for audio, and he's obviously an
It is.
expert at it. It is. He goes, it is. And it's
We're
been nothing but
100%.
what happened? Is it the tube? Oh my goodness. Oh,
I think he unplugged some. I think he kicked
Look at-
something and unplugged it or lowered the volume too somewhere.
and then he keeps breaking his audio. Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Hey, I have let me see what we got here. I think I have something for you that you could certainly have. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Here. Dad, if you're interested, I have a really
A really nice microphone. Hey, I appreciate that. That's good.
So let me
You're back. I think you're
know.
back.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it's back. That's very funny. That's very funny.
Yeah, there you go. You're back.
Just let me know, okay? All right, because I'll tell you right now, I never had any problems. Hey, but I'm just saying. All right,
So
go
you're
ahead,
talking
please.
about neutering and kind of reducing that like skill ceiling of like flight model. Do you think it's the same thing in like most PvP aspects like FPS and just about everything else, creating like more casual gameplay? What would you say?
I think FPS is about the same. It hasn't changed too much. I'm not huge on FPS. I'm a huge finals player, so competitively I've played a lot of CS:GO, so I love FPS shooters.
Yeah.
But in this game it's impossible to be competitive because of the netcode. It's
Because
not fun when
mhm.
yeah, because sometimes you'll get killed by ghosts or like people who aren't even in front of your line of sight. It's chunky.
Yeah,
But
I've
I
been
think
seeing
there's
that with
potential.
like contested zones have been really rough this last week, especially with like invisible, like desync players within the zone and everything else that's happening right now. So I
Yeah.
get that.
But hold on. So I
Yeah.
I know nothing about like networking or any of that, right? So I don't honestly understand what netcode actually means, but like why is this something they can't fix? That's what I don't understand. Because it's obviously an issue, right? I mean, that's
So
why we have
I'm not a coder, so I can't say for the coding team. But in short, what it seems like to me is every server has a tick rate. It's how fast things respond. It's how fast we're able to basically see what's going on. I don't know what tick rate Star Citizen is using, but it's abysmal compared to something like CS:GO. Um, Now, it could be that we have a high tick rate, but because there's so many pieces trying to communicate together, it slows everything else down, which is what causes a lot of the issues we have.
that's what concerns me
Yeah.
about the game, because maybe it's because of the fact that like meshing isn't in full force, right? And that's what creates so many different moving parts because the server's handling so much at once, right? I'm assuming as server meshing starts to improve and you have more smaller, so I guess a higher amount of smaller servers working with each other, but they're still separate servers. Maybe that will improve that issue. I'm hoping. Because I mean,
Yeah,
I think
100%.
overall it has a great. I mean, the FPS really could be amazing, but we have this problem with desync, and the same thing goes with the ship to ship combat. And I don't know if you had
Yeah.
a chance to test out the most recent issue we have with the desync and ship to ship, but in AC we were testing out for 4.0, and literally I was just like head on shooting at somebody while they weren't moving, and it was like 3.5 to 4 full clips of the laser repeaters and a gladius to actually get through shields and destroy the ship. And I don't know if that's been fixed or not.
Yeah, I've had that happen recently when I was in Arena Commander. I think sometimes the ships don't register that you're shooting at them, even if you're unloading onto them.
Hmm.
And it seems that usually the only fix is one or the other ship's blowing up.
I
Yeah.
had
So
that happening a lot the other day when I was trying to fight an arrow in my Gladius, and it was just nothing was registering, even though it was showing like the hit indicator was actually, making contact. It just I don't
it
know what
Yeah,
was
just,
going
but it
on
wouldn't
there.
actually destroy the ship.
It
But
wouldn't
it would
actually like
show it.
destroy the ship,
Yeah.
yeah.
or it wouldn't take any like actual like damage. It was wild.
Yeah.
What's
So
crazy is I don't know that that's a desync issue because it seems more like it's just the server's not registering the ship's existence at all.
Yeah,
Because
agreed.
they're hitting, and I mean the other pilot thinks you're hitting them too because they're seeing the hit reactions, but they're not actually taking damage. So
yeah.
it may be something else.
Yeah. Guess is as good as mine, right?
Yeah. So you brought up Pyro. You're hopeful that maybe CIG is kind of embracing more of a PvP oriented environment. Granted, it's supposed to be like the outlaw system of the West, or like of
Yeah, so I
of the
know I
verse.
know I know Star Citizen gets a lot of influence from Eve Online. And they have stated multiple times they want Stan to be safe. They want it to be an easy place to go. And Pyro is supposed to be this lawless area. Of course, most players complain that lawless doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. There should be consequences, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, what's the point of having a pyro if there's nothing where we can have all this risk? So technically, pyro is supposed to be, hey, you want to find the best quantanium rocks or you want to find the best freight material, you got to come
Hmm.
out here and you got to risk it. Simple as that.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
the
think
I
we've
think the
seen that
way
yet.
of yeah, I think the way of consequence is more like reputation based and things like that, right? That's how I would see
Correct.
it. So it's not
Yeah,
like
and that's what most people complain about. The biggest complaint I've seen on Reddit is like, oh, how could they release pyro without first having the reputation system in, right? But at the same time, that
Right.
doesn't matter because if you're someone who just lives in wormhole space and EVE Online all the time, which basically, to put it in Star Citizen terms, if you live in Pyro all the time and you never go to Stanton, reputation shouldn't matter to you. You're out here killing people just because you enjoy it. And that's going to be expected. Some players like that playstyle.
Yep.
yeah, but I would see it as like I guess the way that they're building things for this game, reputation might be necessary in a sense of like components and things like that. I don't know anything about Eve though, so I have no fear like comparison of how that
It's
with that
yeah,
if that means anything in Eve.
no, 100%, but they're completely different. And I don't expect them to be the same. It's just more to give like an idea to some people. But the best way I can counter argue to that, right, is like, okay, let's say there is reputation, and all of a sudden we're not allowed to get certain things for whatever reason. Uh, well, if I kill you and take the components off your ship, does it really matter?
Oh,
Yeah, that's a fair point.
appear to have frozen up. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, looked like the video was kind of freezing up for a second. I was gonna make sure that it was still responding for a sec. So
Yeah.
it does seem like CIG is heading in the direction where they want like more numbers and like fights, and discussing that tick rate. Do you think that it's going to be something they can actually handle in the long run? I know that like Master Modes is supposed to, well, it was intended to bring down the speeds, make it so we could actually have like fights concluding rather than a bunch of idiots going at Monk Jesus, down the line.
Yeah, I
Because
agree. I mean
like,
that's kind of so
yeah.
that's the it's a double-edged sword because I personally, all right, like talking about the flight model, I think slowing down the speeds was a really good move because it is
Hmm.
important for new players to be able to at least kind of have an idea of what's going on. With really high
Mm,
speeds, it's really easy to miss out on what's going on really quickly. And
yeah.
before we started the stream, like I was talking about, there's a game called Hunter's Net, which is kind of like Star Citizen's old flight model,
Yeah.
but they added a couple features that makes it more competitive and less cheesy. So there's very high acceleration rates, there's low top speeds, but you can change directions really quickly. And the big complaint with that is, well, you're going to run into people who wiggle by constantly moving back, left, right, up, down, right?
Hmm.
But you can't do that because there's G forces. The more you go back and forth faster, well, you're going to scramble your brain and you can't do it forever. And I think
That's
that
a
was
good
the best solution
solution.
that they could come up with.
That sounds
is a
like a
good
good solution.
yeah.
It sounds like a not only realistic solution, but it's also a good solution to really just deter people from doing this like constant wiggle movement. Because I have definitely run into
Yep.
people under the current flight model that like they just take advantage of the wiggle. Because the way that Star Citizen does it is it a constant push of G's for a long enough period of time that then it knocks you out, right? But it to me it
Correct.
makes sense. It's like if you're getting hit with G's back and forth, it's probably going to knock you out anyway. They probably should. So rather
Correct.
than having like acceleration ramp ups on your
I'm gonna go back
strafes
to
and
the
things
other
like
screen, by the way.
that, yeah, absolutely. Instead of having like
Mhm.
acceleration ramp ups, right? It's like this artificial ramp up to try to keep people or deter people from wiggling. Probably the best
Mhm.
deterrent would be to do that. That actually sounds like it makes a lot of sense. I don't
Yeah,
know
and
why
I
they
mean,
don't.
the thing is, I think sometimes they overanalyze things. Like they're thinking of
Yeah.
like they don't really sit back, or at least that's what I'm guessing. Maybe they do, and maybe it's somebody else saying, "Hey, we're not doing that." But I mean, if you think about it, I'm not a coder once again, but all you have to do is add a coefficient that basically says direction and change increases g-force effects over time. And that's all it takes. Like it's something you could do overnight, but they wait weeks and years to implement some
Ho
simple
ho.
solution.
Wait. Come
How many
on.
years has it been since we like introduced? It was like what 10, 11 years. We had what a couple of different versions of the flight model. I know it's nothing
Yeah,
compared to like what it used to be, and then they changed it, like you said, like 3.0, and after it's seen a couple of like different renditions. I think they just need to bring back hover mode. I think it was the best thing that happened to Star Citizen.
You're killing me with this joke. I can't. But no, I mean, it's the reason why I was like, hold on a second, because you say it would be like a quick fix type of thing. But I always go back to this. It took, I don't know how many years for them to alphabetize the global or friends list. So if it took
yeah,
them that many years to do, I can't imagine that takes a whole lot of coding. You know what I mean? So if it took that
I
long to
agree.
do that, can you imagine what we're discussing here, you know? That I hate to be so critical of CIG, because realistically they are doing something ridiculous, but when I say ridiculous, I think it's like it's a rather large project. It's a lot happening. But at the same time, it's like sometimes you got to prioritize, like this is something that needs to be done like right now, and how much effort does it really take, you know?
Yeah, it wouldn't take much. It's pretty
Do you
quick.
guys think
I would
they?
imagine someone who
Yeah.
knows good mathematics could probably do it in one night.
Mm.
Do you think they could have accomplished having a nicer flight model, like you said, with the previous flight model in 3.22, by just simply reducing the speeds? I've heard that argument
Yeah,
like a number of times.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. A lot of the guilds that orgs that use like a lot of knife fighting practice,
Mhm.
what they do is they limit their speeds prior. They would limit their speeds to like 200, 300 and play around with
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
The only thing we can't simulate is the extra speed you get from the afterburner boost. But still, I mean, it made a huge difference in how fights played out, and that was very little. And you still had the skill ceiling where, hey, you could be very dodgy.
Yeah. Okay.
God, I really like that idea. I'm sorry, I'm not to backtrack, but the
No,
idea
it's
of
okay.
like
Let's hear it.
of too many strafes actually creating too much G-force in multiple directions and actually blacking you
Yeah.
out. That sounds
Like
like a
that
really. I kind of. I wish I would have actually played Hunter. Like I probably should jump in that and try it out.
Internet
I probably enjoy
was,
it.
from
Before
what I
people start
saw, like
jumping, I love that game. I hope it gets more love, but nobody plays it, so you're always playing freaking bots.
Oh
But
really? Yeah.
yeah, that's the only thing unfortunate with it. But it is really fun. I definitely recommend people try it. Hopefully, it flourishes one day and becomes a very fun, like competitive game. But I feel like it's missing something to attract people.
Hmm.
yeah,
What
But
would
I
it
that's
think
be?
back
I
Back
on
to
was gonna
Star
say
Citizen.
like
the
Yeah.
objective.
yeah,
The objective of strafes, right? So like I know a lot of people say like, well, hey, there is counter strafing G's, right? Like if you go one way and then you go the other way, you black out again. There's not. And you can tell because if you strafe in one direction and you do a complete 180 roll and then you continue that same direction, now instead of losing or blacking out, you start gaining your consciousness again. Because
Yeah.
even though you're like
yeah.
here to I'm gonna illustrate it with this, right? So if this is the top of the ship, hold on, and I do a 180 and I keep moving this way, I now lose all the G's I was building up, which
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah, that's how that's actually what I do. Like anytime I see myself about to black out, I just counter strafe and it removes that. It undoes it.
Yeah.
and I'm all set. So yeah, that's a good point. Jeez, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about actually flying because I'm not a pilot in real life, and the fastest I've gone is probably, in like high school, 110 miles an hour or something in a car, and I didn't hit a wall, so that's about all I
So
know.
here's one thing I was going to ask both of you actually. In your opinion, what are some of the pros and cons that are currently accompanied with master modes at the moment?
So obviously we have that it's much easier to get into close fights, a lot easier. That is a very nice pro. The other pro is the entry level. It's a lot easier to kind of get in and do stuff. But honestly, that's about it for me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Elder?
Well, yeah. So you're speaking specifically in regards to like 1v1 or maybe very small scale 2v2 type
Yeah.
scenarios. Right. So I'm curious if you've had the opportunity to do like maybe larger scale, like team battles and stuff like that.
Yes, I have to a little extent. Not a whole lot, but from time to time I do play with individuals and try to do a little bit of group combat.
What's your opinion on it?
I think it's very easy to cheese it. Not going to mention players, but I think we've all seen the current strategy of going inside an Archimedes or a Buccaneer, and you
Hmm.
shoot somebody till they look at you, and then you run the other way. There's absolutely nothing you
Yeah, you
can
don't
do
have to
about
get.
it. There's nothing you can do about it, and there's literally no skill to that.
Yeah, no, there's a whole team I think that may be potentially doing something like that. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, that's somewhat true. There are ways to prepare for it, but I think that's more like if you know who it is you're going up against, you know what they're gonna do, right? So you're like already
Yeah,
ready for that tactic, I suppose.
and
As
there
opposed
is
to
counters. There is counters to that strategy. The problem is Star Citizen has gone out of their way to make sure that you can't use that strategy. And the strategy is everybody sticks together in a ball. As soon
yeah,
as a pilot gets near you, you call them out and you shoot them. But every time we look at someone, we can't identify who they are. We're
yeah.
guessing who's a teammate, who's an enemy. So you never know what to do.
That's fixed in 4.0 though, at least. Because that's been
Oh, good.
rough. Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe
that
so.
was
Yeah.
bad, bro.
Oh, it was so
Yeah.
bad because if you're trying to orient yourself with your team and you have no, so we started calling out if there was like an odd ship out, right? So let's say we're going up against a bunch of gladiuses and then there's an arrow and a buccaneer. It'd be like, okay, we can call out the arrow and a buccaneer. The only way around otherwise identifying the ships is if you had your comms panel up. Right. In the comms
Yep.
panel, it would say hail target and it would give you a name, which can be
Yeah.
tough because if your viewpoint or whatever you call it is too close in, right? Like for me, I would do the bottom right comms panel. That's the one I would do the comms panel in a Gladius, for example. I'd have to look over. And when you're in the heat of battle, it's like that one pair over can feel almost detrimental to a fight.
Yeah,
For me,
and
it
so much
does.
could happen in that bit. Like somebody could jump in front of you all of a sudden, you wouldn't know.
Yep.
I think a really cool feature would be like maybe on the crosshair is having something that says a pilot's name and how close they are in proximity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other thing too. Okay. So let's see if you. Oh God, I can go off. I can go off on this. So have you noticed? So I very especially on the old flight model where you were able to actually have like merging was an actual skill, right? So like you'd have those boom and zoom types. So you would
Yeah.
have to set up the merge to make sure you have that momentum ready to go. And I would use my MFD to actually see the distance of the target, even though I'm not looking at them, right? So I don't have to look on the screen to see it. Now we don't have any indicator unless we're looking directly at the target. Did you used to use that distance that was displayed on the MFD also to help in the battle, or do you find that distracting?
I did at first. It works for when they're very far distances, but once they get close, you kind of have to go feel and you have to go off trajectory and kind of hope you line it up.
Yeah,
But honestly, merging like always worked against bad players because they kind of their intention was to run away. But a good pilot that knows you're trying to merge with them is going to actually take advantage of it and slow down on you and then just shoot you in the back. So there's a lot of give and take. But that's the thing is, right? Most good pilots wouldn't try to do that. They would try to stick to the fight because evasion was possible. Once you took evasion
Yep.
away, well, now we have people who are doing it again. Like one
yeah,
of the biggest things that I've noticed is I get called a backstrafer a lot in Star Citizen, and the reason was because in the old flight model, what I would do is when people would backstrafe against me, which they wouldn't backstrafe, right? Because everybody thinks backstrafe is smacking reverse.
No,
But
it's
really, anytime you do a circle strafe, you're backstrafing. And a lot of people don't know that. So I would constantly be called a backstrafer, yet I show all these videos about like knife fighting and how to get close to people.
hmm,
But now we're in this new flight model and people are still calling me a backstrafer, yet now we have pilots who literally 180 and go the other direction. And
yeah,
they're still like they're playing the correct meta way to play.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think that backstrafing a lot of times is just literally strafing away from the pip the entire time as well. Like, so you have people that will like kite you out by doing that. And
Yeah.
you know, people will be like, oh, they backstrafe, the backstrafe. Well, no, not actually. What they're actually doing is they're strafing opposite of the pip if you're using lead pip.
Mhm.
And
Right.
what that does is it creates that distance. And people don't
Yeah.
And
understand that either.
I personally think that's a valid strategy. I think there's nothing wrong with it. But the problem is because we have slow acceleration rates,
Hmm.
we can't we can't counteract it.
We can't
Because
push
the
against it.
easiest kind
Yeah.
of yeah, you can't push against it because you can't. We don't have enough power to not allow them to react in time. Right now, people can easily react to any maneuver you make, and I think
Yeah.
that's why high accelerations is better. It takes away that reaction. It's kind of like I like to always say, like if you put Muhammad Ali versus Tyson and you don't allow Tyson to use his footwork, he's gonna die, bro. It's just simple
Yeah.
as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was going to bring this up because I was thinking about this earlier. The two things that I miss about the previous flight model is how much merges, like a satisfying merge when you got that, how good that felt. And you don't have that anymore, you know?
Mm-mm.
And just
It's not satisfying anymore. It's not a skill.
no, it's just like the overall like flight, like it's just too rigid. I think that's what always gets me is I feel like I'm on rails the entire time, and you know, it's just
And if I can make a comment on
yeah.
that too, and
Mhm.
I know we just talked about this. I think it was the last episode,
We did,
but
yeah, I know.
basically, CIG or the powers that be in CIG, whatever, still see this as a problem where even with the current model, where when you drop out of nav mode, you immediately
Mhm.
basically hit the speed you need to be merged onto somebody. Apparently, that's still not enough for training wheels, and they want to make it where there's some sort of like invisible force or bubble around you that's absent of time and space, so that way you can come to an immediate stop out of what's no longer called nav mode. It's called, I don't know if you've watched this, by the way,
Do
John, but so basically there's now the training whales are you can fly directly up to your target, and the moment you drop out of quantum boost mode or whatever, a quantum boost, you will come to a complete stop, and it won't have any effect to G's because of the science that they're imposing on the
Yeah,
idea
the
that you
warp
have to,
technology.
yeah, which to me, so it's already as easy as I thought it could possibly get, and they're like, no, it needs to be easier. Is what I'm getting.
I think they
There's a very
mentioned
easy fix to that as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All you have to do is have cooldowns. So basically, the minute you do that, like sure, you'll warp right on top of somebody, but you can't use your systems for 10, 20 seconds.
No.
So you can't abuse it in combat. Same with nav mode. If you want to bail out of combat and go into nav mode, you shouldn't be allowed to turn your nose if you're swapping over to nav mode. You can keep your current speed. I think that's fair, but you shouldn't be allowed to redirect your ship's direction.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I
Still,
don't know how I feel about that one. Because
It's a
I
complicated
mean,
one.
if I'm being honest,
It's
as
a
far as
complicated
yeah,
one.
it was
yeah, well,
complicated.
because what that does is it puts you just in a straight line, and when it comes to getting out of a fight, it's pretty difficult as it is now anyway because of the lack of speeds. On top of that, when
Correct.
you have multiple people targeting you, you're basically just dead in the water. So there's not much for options for getting out of that situation other than like
Yeah, but
noise and nav mode.
yeah, but see, that's also putting into account like this is if we're considering like a universe where we have more acceleration, because
Hmm.
now you can sidestep, you can juke, then go into nav mode, and then push away, right? Like
Yeah.
there's an alternative. Again, I wouldn't say you would lose your speed completely because let's say you're fighting a Gladius 1v1 and you both have the same top speed. If you
Hmm.
have fast acceleration rate, what that lets you do is you can pull away from them as they're pushing into you. You now push right past them, and now you're both at top speed, so there's no way for him to catch up to you.
Yeah.
That's where you can initiate your nav mode, and now that would let you easily run away. However, if they have a teammate that's watching for that, then they can capitalize on you trying to escape and taking you out when you try to do that. And that's where teamwork comes into play. So there's some things that I'm proposing in a sense of, in a universe where we also have this acceleration, because without the possibility of maneuvering in close quarters, it's all pointless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's mostly true. I'm sorry, Dad. That's mostly true.
No,
I
it's
think
it's
the
it's
only
fine.
variable is would be if like one side or the other abuse their boost as well, right? So let's say like during the fight I abused my boost to the point where I had basically nothing left. The other guy was conserving it a bit, and then you try to
Yeah.
because that's a good used to be a much better tactic too in the old flight model, where it's like
Yeah.
you pull them in one direction. Oh damn it! You pull them in one direction and then you come back against them, and that was basically that would always just get you out of the situation, right? And now it's a little less effective because it's like the variable of the fact that once you go over SEM, if you run out of boost, it's pulling you back to SEM. And then it depends on if the other person is conserving. So that's true. I guess dependent on how well you conserve your boost as well, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Correct. But see, that's where I think that system shines, right? Because if you're in a 1v1 scenario and you have no intention of fight, any pilot who can somewhat fly can always have the chance of escaping.
Hmm.
Now, if you fall into a situation where you're outnumbered, you're not supposed to get away. I mean,
Yeah.
someone's going to watch and try to catch you when you try to escape, and they're going to burn you down. It's simple as that. And I think that's the strategy we should be going for, right? Because we want teamwork. We want people to work together. Like one of the biggest things that I find to be a ridiculous like idea is, let's get all these heavy fighters, let's make them anti-light fighters, but hey, they have no ability to catch up to light fighters.
Hmm.
They have dog shit acceleration. So all they do is just sit there and wait for light fighters to come at them, which who's going to do that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted by chat right now.
Yeah, I'm distracted by this one. Actually,
I was
I
just
wanted
catching
to
up and
comment on
just
this
reading a
one
little
right
bit of
here.
it. Yeah.
So
Which one?
so this is for Jonathan Winters, I'm assuming. He probably has a good answer to this. What's the correct
Yeah.
combat maneuver I can use when Avenger 1 pulls the exit to menu lever?
That's hilarious.
No comment.
No comment.
Sorry, that was a
I
good one.
thought, didn't they fix that? I thought they made it so like now when you escape, like your guy stays in space, doesn't he?
There's a combat log. Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
timer
Like
on
there's-
it. So it doesn't seem to work in always the most appropriate situations, because like I'll be sitting in my ship in the middle of nowhere and be like, I need to relog, something's broken, or we need to switch servers, and it gives me a combat log timer and I can't freaking switch servers. I swear I
Yeah.
wasn't in a fight. I promised.
So here's, not to like shuffle our topic from like, log off like levers or anything like that, but my question for you guys is, does it seem like CIG has a concrete vision with their own flight model?
I think they do,
Personally-
and I think they don't.
Yeah, I know. Elder's giving me like looks over here. He's more of the like the dog fighter than I am here, but I feel like there's a couple like parts of this. I feel like they don't have like a thorough concept on it, but I feel like they're pretty stuck with what they want to do because they're stuck with it because of Squadron 42. Like operator modes and some of the things are not like fully tested out, but it feels like they're pushing toward it because this is what corporate has decided ultimately is going to happen,
Yeah, I think
I think-
personally. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's very clear that they're trying to get more casual people to be able to come in and enjoy the game, which I think, from longevity of the game, it's a smart move. You want to be able to have it easily accessible to people. So I think you got to keep in mind their primary goal, which is that have easy access to the video game. But at the same time, they have to balance like the skill ceiling. But again, like if you look at Rocket League, easiest game to get into, hardest game to master, and that thing is
Right.
3D space as it gets.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about Rocket League either, but but I agree with the sentiment, right? There needs to be a good like entry point, but but eliminating the top, right? The ability to continue improving, like that, eliminating that and leaving very small like I guess room for growth is not a good move, because what it does is it kind of removes the longevity of the game,
Yeah, it nukes it. There's no point in playing if you can't progress anymore. Once you hit that ceiling, it's like, okay, why do I even bother?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is it less
ahead.
of a skill ceiling and lack of skill expression? Maybe that's a better word to use there, because it feels like you can't, personalize it to your liking as opposed to having that option before, right? There is still like to some degree like a skill ceiling, but it just looks different, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, most really good pilots right now are ditching their joysticks and going mouse, so that should tell you a lot.
Yeah, which I refuse
Yeah.
to do myself. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
me too. It's not fun. It's just
no,
not fun.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I want to be a great pilot, absolutely, but like I don't want to sacrifice the enjoyment I get just for the sake of like looking like a better pilot, right?
Or
Like
just
that.
have to
Yeah,
like because of the meta. This is the meta, so
it
you have to do this all
Yeah.
of a sudden, right?
But I do want to jump on to that question. Like, Daddy,
Yeah. Acid wrong?
no, I want to jump on the question that you asked as to whether
yeah.
they have like a solid
Sure,
let me
sure,
see
sure.
here. Doesn't seem CIG has a concrete vision of their own flight model. I think all right, my opinion is that I think they had what they thought was a concrete vision, and then after seeing the overall response even by the casual players and the fact that they can't even get away from specific scenarios, I think was
Mhm.
one of the reasons why people weren't happy about it. I think they're realizing they don't have a concrete, solid vision that works. Does that make sense? And I think
Yeah,
what's
that makes
happening
sense.
now, I think what they're doing with it's called operator modes now. I think that's their response to the fact that people just aren't enjoying the flight model, and I don't think it's coincidental that there's been a drop in player base. I don't think it's just because people are sick of waiting for 4.0. I don't think that helps, but I don't think there's a coincidence that it's been a consistent drop in player base. Um, I'd
Yeah.
say roughly around the same time as Master Mode was dropping. I think it was too jarring, and I think it was, and it just feels like I've seen a lot of casual players complain about the fact that they say it doesn't feel like they're flying in space anymore, right? It feels too stiff, and they don't like
And it's
the
not even the
clankiness.
sweat saying that, right? It's not the sweats. It's
No,
like your typical like I want to like cargo bob, point A to point B in the verse. That
yeah,
sometimes
like,
will say that too. It's interesting.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So I
So
don't. I mean,
Well, to kind of have like a counter argument to this, right? I forgot the YouTuber. I'm so sorry, my dude, whoever you are. But he made a really good point. I think once you guys just hear the description, you'll kind of get it. Basically, he compared the leaderboards and he looked at the leaderboards during the old flight model, and he had like maybe 100, 200 people who were like at least 1 hour of gameplay in free flight.
yeah,
When we went over to master modes, we saw a drastic increase in that of having like 400 people in the top 100. Sorry, 400 people in the 1 hour list. And then now recently, I looked at it now, see how we're doing, and we still have like 200, which is still more than the old flight model. So it's clear that people are dropping off. I think people came in because of the initial like, hey, this is new, let's all try it out,
yeah,
and we're still losing people now. And I think the reason we still have more now than we did before is because overall Star Citizen has still been growing, because even though it's a dog shit game, it's the best spaceship simulator ownership game in the world.
yeah, yeah. Realistic. Yeah,
I
that's
like JPEGs.
one
JPEGs are
hundred.
cool.
No, but I 100% agree with that. I think the same thing. I think that part of that is because of the fact that it's still a game. Like from an outside perspective, if I see somebody playing the game and I don't catch them getting 30K'd or jarring around and all this stuff, I would be like, holy shit, like that's something I want to check out. Like, what is this? This guy's flying directly up to a planet and literally there's no cutscenes, there's nothing. Like all of it, it just looks amazing, right? So
Yeah.
that's probably
Yeah,
a big part of it. Is there's
and
a
I,
lot of
I
new
think
people come in.
yeah, and to me personally, I think difficulty is fun. Like it's okay to have slow ships. I always enjoy the notion of like getting in something like the Star Lancer Max, which is an industrial
Mhm.
ship. I
Mhm.
like that it's slow as hell. What I want is when I go into planets, I want crazy storms that make it where I have to fight the wind, where I have to fight gravity, things that like make me have to push my piloting skills to the limit. Like instead of me going from one planet to drop off cargo to go to another planet, well, hey, there should be something in the way. Maybe I have to navigate through a ravine. Maybe I have to like avoid storms. There has to be difficulty for the game to be fun.
Mm,
Because if you look at
yeah.
Elite Dangerous, the most boring aspect of that game was to go from one planet to another. You basically autopilot manually. You basically lock into a zone and you fly straight for like 30 minutes. It's boring. There's nothing fun about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts.
I think they did
So
a good job on that with the pyro jump, where we have to navigate through that funnel, the wormhole.
Yeah,
I think that was
it's not just
brilliant.
like a click and forget kind of situation, right?
Yeah,
You actually have to navigate through, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too. I honestly, I liked it more than I thought I would. I remember watching it. I was like, oh, this is kind of dumb. And what the hell? Like watching them come up with the concept. And then I only did it once because it's not like I'm going to keep jumping back and forth. I've seen it. Okay. But I went and
Right.
did it. And I was like, this is a really cool experience. Like, I, I was 100% wrong about it. It was a good idea. And I admit that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was really cool. And it's like watching in like the whole concept, like you shoot this like ball of energy or something, it opens up the hole, and then you can fly into it, and it's just really cool. So yeah, I agree. I like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. Being challenged when you flight is fun. It's nice to have guardrails to teach new players, but eventually you have to let them explore and be able to master and learn things.
Yeah, and that was one of
Agreed.
the allures to the game too. Was is that it wasn't like you just jumped in and immediately everything you it was just like easy. Like no, it was I didn't know
Yeah,
what the hell I was doing. I really liked the challenge of the fact that I sat in my hangar for like 2 hours trying to figure out what the hell. I didn't know I had to call for the hangar doors to open. You know what I
You're just
mean? It was
standing
just
there or like sitting there in your ship looking at
yeah,
the door
sitting in
like,
my
okay, when does it
Pisces.
open? Do I have to wait?
Yeah. And
How
my
does that
first
work?
yeah, and it's hard.
experience.
And
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
we all had to Google all that stuff because
Yep.
nobody knew what the hell to do. But
Hmm.
it gets easier the more you do it. But that learning process was what made Star Citizen fun for a while. Till
Hmm.
I
eventually
do
you
agree.
learn it and it's like, okay, now what? I feel
My
like they did the same thing with mining. Mining used to be really fun, and then
And
they
they
made it this
they
really
dumbed it down.
tedious game.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's really broken though, isn't it? Is it still broken?
most
How's
likely.
it, bro?
It's safe to assume, yes.
How was it broken though? I
I
guess
don't know. I
not.
don't. I don't know if he knows, but I
My
just
guess
heard
my
that.
guess would be maybe something with putting on, like, I know for now, like, Quantanium is kind of pointless to find. It's like if you get it, you're lucky. But there's no
Hmm.
point to going for it. The other thing is because you have to use all these specialized gadgets for certain rocks. Sometimes you may not have the correct loadout to bust something that would not be optimal, so it's kind of like a waste of time, and you're not getting as much money as you would if you had the optimal build for that specific rock. So it's a lot of like tinkering and going back and forth, which is
Yeah,
fine, but I think it's too much repetition.
I agree.
It does sound
Here's
tedious too, though.
another question I actually have for you guys.
Hmm.
Do you think operator modes, they were talking about this recently, not during SitCon. When did they bring that up? It was IAE, right? Do you think that's going to be enough to
I think
expand and improve on mesh modes? I think it was day 3 of IAE. They were talking about
you're
it. They're
referring
just like,
to how they're gonna what was it? They're like completely getting rid of basically master modes in a way. Like they're
yeah,
getting rid
they're
of the
getting rid
toggle
of
system.
nav mode. It'll be less
Yeah,
restrictive, is what they said. Do you think that's going to be like a step in the right direction, or is it still not really
it's
solving the
it's hard
problem
to
in the room?
say. I don't I don't think having nav mode or not having nav mode is the issue. I think the issue is more so the other issues we have with flight model. Um, but to kind of touch on things that have to do with the flight models, it's sometimes it's not only the flight model. It's more or less that we don't have the ability to be diverse. Like it's light fighters or go home. That's basically all we have. And the reason is because light fighters can dictate the fight because of their top speeds.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing some podcast questions that kind of line up with my last question that I had for you guys about master modes. Um, Jen Terry says, I'd like to hear 3 simple suggestions from Jonathan Winters to improve current master mode's flight model in terms of ship combat.
So before we even touch on Matt, we kind of talked about it earlier. But for
Mhm.
people who
Yeah.
weren't here, my solution to it would be increase acceleration rates, which is not top speeds. You still have the same top speeds, but increase acceleration rates so people don't have time to react to your movements, so that you can actually juke and be evasive. And number two, to counteract the wiggle that happens when you have fast acceleration rates, is make it
Yep.
so that when ships constantly change directions, your G forces tolerance decrease, so you're affected by G forces more and more. So you can't just constantly spam. But on another notion, we need more utility. We need ECM. Again, if you go back to Eve Online, you used to have these ships called Webbers, and their job was basically they lock onto a target and they don't allow them to use their full speed. What would that do in the current meta? Let's say you have a Buccaneer who's coming in behind and he wants to hit you while everybody else is looking the other way. Well, the Weber comes in, locks him in place, and now that Buccaneer can't keep going back and forth. Now he's just shooting target. But
Uh,
he would also have to add other ships, things that can repair ships mid combat, things that can reinforce bubbles on ships, something to diversify the field so that it's not just who shoots who more. We need some strategy. Like
like a
Overwatch
Something
rock
wouldn't
more,
be
paper
yeah.
Overwatch
scissors.
without shields and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
I do definitely agree with that. I like the concept of needing a well-rounded fleet to go into a battle with. You know what I mean? So like, for example, you have the Webbers and you have something that can counteract that effect or something, right? But yeah, I like that. I think that's a pretty good idea. I don't know, me personally, I don't know how I feel about like higher acceleration rates. I'm kind of impartial to that until I see it in practice, but I definitely agree with
Let
the
me
idea that you can
let
cut
me
like,
let me clarify something. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Sure.
Sorry to cut you. I'm so sorry. But
That's
Storm, and
it's
I
No,
fine.
no.
think it's going to
Yeah.
what you're saying. Storm mentioned something. He's saying things are already fast as fuck. We already have really fast accelerations. You're right. If you go forward, we don't have left, we don't have right, we don't have up, we don't have down, and we don't have back.
Those are the
If you have
accelerations that
those
need to be adjusted.
completely buffed, we don't have to buff forward. I think forward is fine. The issue is up, down, left, and right. We have no other way of evading but forward.
Yeah.
Um, side strafes you can do some form of evading, but I think the way
Yeah,
that
they've
I
gotten
think
better.
that yeah, I think that the way though, I definitely agree with the idea of making it where there's a realistic G's effect on you. I think that would fix a lot, honestly, right? Because
Yeah,
it would create a situation where even if you had a high acceleration in different directions, um, let's see, we have 13 G's left, right, up. Okay, so even if you had like high G's in different directions, but you do have that effect where you can't like just spam back and forth and it's going to knock you out, it would create a situation where people um are evading in a more like dynamic way, right? And so instead of just going right and then left, it's more like
yeah.
how can I move in a way that's going to throw off their aim a little bit, right? Maybe perhaps I do like a left strafe with a right roll type thing, and maybe it's going to throw the pip off a little bit, something like that. Like I think it would create a more dynamic situation as opposed to just not everybody's doing this like this wiggle thing, but people are certainly using it, and it
Mhm.
can be a pain in the ass sometimes. So
It can be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
yeah,
there's some people who built macros for that stuff, and they would just spam that and focus on aiming with their mouse. So I know it's a problem. Like I've seen it, but
Excuse me.
there's workarounds. There's things to fix that. The problem is they were never implemented.
my biggest problem, honestly, I have is like I not being able to set myself up for like a pre-turn the way I used to be able to, where I could push into it
Yeah,
and then continue turning while strafing into it, because once you hit like a side strafe, you hit that wall that you can't boost past or something. It feels very stiff, and what it does is I just make myself into a
yeah,
bullseye, you know what I mean? Just
and
spray
correct.
at him
This
and hold back on your
Yep.
stick.
this comes back to like the acceleration issue, right? Because like yeah, we have forward and right gives you 13 Gs, but that's a 45-degree angle. We're going fast in 45-degree angles. What if we have to go 45 degrees negative angle all the way back? We don't have 13 Gs. We have to kill that 13 Gs of acceleration, then we have 13 Gs. So it seems like we have fast acceleration rates, but we don't. And you can tell because everybody who used to move a lot now says the same thing. It feels like you're fighting in molasses.
Yeah. I mean,
That's a fair point.
is anybody disagree that it's a majority in the chat? Anybody disagree it's a majority just like a aim meta type scenario at this point? I'm
Aim
sure.
race and
Yeah,
DPS
it
race,
really
more or
is.
less.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, that's what it is, Um, okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
So
wait. Jumping back on go ahead. I'm sorry, Dad.
no.
Will
You
operator
I
modes be
want you to
enough
take
to
the like
expand and improve on master modes? So who the hell knows? So we have this. So instead of it turning to like switching to nab mode, it's using quantum boost, destroy. So all right, this is all kind of like theory crafting, right? Because
it is
they
totally
haven't.
theory crafting. That's
Yeah,
why
they
this one
haven't
I
worked.
wanted to like leave as optional. I wasn't
Well,
100% certain because
okay,
we've seen some stuff, right? but
Yeah,
that's about it.
they haven't worked out what they're actually going to do. So they basically suggested what may end up coming of it, right? So basically they're considering that if you go into quantum boost, right, you're not actually switching modes, but you can use quantum boost while you're in regular mode. You'll lose your shields, you'll still have your weapons, right? So who the hell knows
Yeah.
how it's actually going to look? Are people going to mainly just saying forget the shields? Everybody's going to be fighting in quantum boost mode and moving,
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like might end up happening. Can you shoot while you're in quantum boost, or do your weapons just stay charged for when you come out of it? Like, there's too many questions, right? Will it solve the
Yeah.
problem? From what I can tell personally, I don't see them making the flight model better because they seem to have this history of consistently getting worse. From what I hear from people that have been playing the game for long term, is that something you'd agree with, John?
It's hard to say. Things can change. There are things that make me optimistic. Like I think Yogi's responses have been on point. I think a lot of
Okay.
it seems like he does know the issues. Like he does see that we're too slow right now. I think they're just struggling to find the solution that works for both appeasing the casual player and appeasing the more high end player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But things like that you need to have quick solutions or quick tests. Like again, this G-force increase with changing directions. Like why don't they just one night like be like, hey, we're gonna test this out, guys. We're gonna patch this out and let's see what happens. Like why do we have to wait this whole new rebuilding of the flight model to
Again.
test something and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then be like, why are we doing this?
And what they'll do is they'll make a jarring change that's
Mhm.
very dramatic, and it's like, how are you supposed to get accurate reading of what works and what doesn't when you're going literally from like night to day, right? It's like that's what they seem to do. In my opinion, it's just like the change in the missile prices and what they were gonna do. Like do this jarring change, and everybody's obviously uncomfortable with it. When you could make progressive changes, right? You keep tweaking it and make it.
What they
You know what I mean?
should do, and I know we've brought this up before, but they should bring back the experimental arena commander modes, where anytime they're adjusting the flight model, allows any player to come in, test it out, fine tune it, and then once they get their data, they can bring in a new test next time.
Well,
I
the
don't know
question is
why they haven't,
where's
like,
the data coming from?
I don't know.
Like who
From
are they
from
basing it on? They're basing it from the people that
Yeah,
don't
that's
normally play.
yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
Well,
Because it's usually the sweats
well,
that
the
are
thing
like in there in AC, right?
Yeah.
If like
the
being
thing is too
realistic.
is like what's crazy to me with some of the guys I know and like the kind of the behind the scenes that I've heard is we have people who are in these really top orgs and they're knife fighters. They know what they're doing. Like these guys are really aggressive players. They stick close to you and they give all this feedback to the team, but they get ignored every single time.
That's what I've
So
heard too. Yeah.
there's definitely somebody who's just like, nah, we're not doing that. And it could be Chris. Who knows? He might be like, yo, my little kid was playing and he doesn't know what he's doing, so we're gonna nuke everybody.
You know what that makes me think of is the feedback post that they had last summer about what are your thoughts on master modes, and when everybody posted, it just feels less like an actual like question, more like a formality. You know, that's always the issue that I've had with like CAG and how they take in that feedback. They may be taking it in from certain sections of the community, but the like overall like wide spectrum of like the player base is just not being heard. It feels
Yeah, and it's impossible because there's the great notion of video games where if you make a game for everybody, you make a game for nobody. So you have to have somebody who has a clear decision on what they want.
yeah.
And again, I in to the question you had earlier, do we have this grand scale that they're aiming for? I think CIG does have a grand scale, and it's to make it more accessible. What they're trying to figure
Mhm.
out now is how to keep it accessible but make it fun for the people who hate it.
Yep. And it's now like a balancing act between the two, right?
Do you think they have
That
a
makes
problem
sense.
with
Yeah,
trying to please too many people at once?
it's hard to say because again, when I see the feedback, I feel like they're getting good feedback, but they ignore a lot of it sometimes. And I
No,
don't
yeah.
know I don't know who's dictating these changes.
It definitely feels like they're ignoring quite a bit. Personally, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being biased from off of but there was a lot of feedback that I saw from players that weren't like the dogfighting PvP types that I could actually agree with. You know what I mean? Like but it just
Mhm.
felt like it was like, oh yeah, this is the impression I get. They
Yep.
say things that are vague enough, but also kind of lean vaguely in your direction to try to kind of make you feel happy with what might come. But they're not actually taking any of that into consideration, or actually, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
it's kind of the
No, I
impression
That
I
makes
get you.
get.
sense.
It's like a PR thing. It's just like, well, we want to make sure that we keep them around just a little bit longer while we do whatever the hell we feel like we're going to do anyway.
Yeah,
I
I
hate to
think
be
you're right because I
negative.
mean, if they were no, but I think you have a point, right? Because like I think transparency is very key, right? Like
Hmm.
if you don't know,
Mhm.
just say it, bro. Like it's not a big deal. Like just go out and say like, hey guys, we're testing this new system. We don't really know if you guys are gonna enjoy it, but we want to experiment. It's as simple as that, and nobody's gonna be mad about it, man.
Yep,
Yeah.
I do agree. And actually, I was going to say this is a reminder. If you guys want to join us as a live caller, you can check us out in the Discord. We're just hanging out in one of the channels in there. Just hop over to the waiting room, and we'll pull you in when we get to that point toward the end here. So, just a
I
reminder
like
that
bro.
what's that?
I like Bro's comment. There's a lot of maybe this is how it might work, but by the time we, but by the way, why not check out the ship sale in the meantime?
That's yeah, facts.
Yep, very true. There
Maybe
was
this.
actually
That's
I
funny.
don't want to forget about this. Contagion had a really good question. He says, "Remember when they showed off sitcon or they showed off Quantum Boost at last year's sitcon? Do you think that would make it a bit more fun for flying around instead of the current just excel to max speed and fly 200 kilometers?"
I would say no, and we have a good. We kind of talked about this earlier a little bit, and it comes back to
Yep.
Elite Dangerous. Anybody who played Elite Dangerous and had a quantum travel through 30 solar systems knows what I'm talking about. That is not fun. You're going in a straight line for freaking minutes to hours just to get to another side of the planet. It's
You
not
talking
fun.
about
Right. Right.
the Super Cruise mode?
Yeah,
I like that mechanic for one reason, because I feel like that mechanic, what that does is it replaces. I know me and him are like at odds of, which is fine. But no, I
no,
like
that's
that
good.
mechanic for one reason,
That's good.
because what that mechanic is supposed to do, from my understanding, is replaces the jump from OM marker to OM marker, right? And it leaves this like freedom of
Mhm.
travel type feeling. And I like it because it gives the opportunity for you to also. If they do this, I don't know. This is just theory crafting, but it gives the opportunity for somebody to like cast the net or chase you and be able to try to maybe like interdict you that way, as opposed to we're just going to jump to specific points and hope we run across this person,
Yeah,
right? So I
I
like
I think
that.
it's fun.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I do think that would be fun,
Yeah.
but there's you're always gonna have your people that don't like PvP and don't like that stuff. But obviously that's what Stanton is for, right? It's safe.
Yeah.
But the other notion is it ties back to what I said that sure the hypercruise is fun when you
Yeah.
have something to dodge, like
Yeah.
whether it be players you're dodging or whether it be asteroids or traffic, something. We need something to make it a challenge to get to point A from point A to point B rather than AFK and wait for our ship to hit the next bubble point.
Yeah. I don't think, though, my impression of it is I don't think it'll be quite the same. I don't know. What the hell do I know? But the impression I have is that there's going to be like the quantum boost, but then there's also going to be quantum travel, I think. Right?
Yeah, I
Where,
remember seeing that they wanted to do it so you have the long distance like insta lock
yeah.
target
Yeah.
jump, which is what we have now, and they want
Yeah.
the close quarter like semi jump.
Yeah, so I feel like that is kind of the solution for what the part of it that you don't like in Elite Dangerous, right? I mean,
I
where
agree. Yeah.
Elite Dangerous is like the cruise mode, and you got to use that anytime you're in that system. Where it seems like with Star Citizen, that won't necessarily be the truth. It just depends on maybe the length of the jump or whatever it is. Maybe, who
Yeah,
knows, right?
and that's a
Yeah.
form of difficulty there too, right? Because like when we have these fast quantum speeds and close proximity distances, now the challenge is, hey, don't crash into that planet.
Mm.
I did have another question from earlier that I just didn't want to miss. The question was, do you guys think that the forward tricord and reducing backstrafe even more that Yogi talked about will help?
Wait, where's that question?
It's way at
Hmm.
the beginning. I'm going to repost it and then just pin that really quick. So
Oh,
this
do you
is one of the
guys?
questions. This one's from Masshead Rom.
I think
Excuse me.
I personally think reducing backstrafe is not the play. Um, I know that the people are going to hate that notion, but really it comes down to the current system, right? Like what's the current meta? Turn around and go straight away from the player. What's different than backstrafing? There's absolutely no difference. I think having a strong backstrafe allows you to dictate the push and pull of the fight, which allows you to kind of it's again, I love using boxing because everybody's seen it, right? Like it allows you to step in, step out, step in, step out, and then it becomes a counter fight between the two pilots rather than just this we go forward or we go sideways.
I don't know. I think that personally, I feel like a couple of things. They keep trying to like resolve this backstrafe issue, and I think the problem is realistically, it's not people are actually just holding back on this stick, but again, they're what they're doing is they're creating this like this widening bubble by strafing opposite the pip, and to if you want to remove that problem, that means that you have no real strafing ability, right? So which means there's no real like maneuvering to try to dodge anything, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the biggest problem that I see with backstrafing is that literally it's like somebody could be. I obviously have run across people that are just full throttle backwards to try to like keep you in front of them, and is not enough of like or forward ability to push into that where you're basically just getting like destroyed. But I don't know. It feels to me like every time they try to like solve this problem, it doesn't seem to actually solve anything. And personally, I feel like it's just worse now than it's ever been. Like it's like when somebody's just not committed to pushing you at all, you're just if it's a F7, you're just basically eating all their shots, and there's not anything you can do about it. And if you're, I mean, this is like AC stuff. Realistically, if you're in the PU too, right? Like you're going to use whatever you can to live. That's a purpose. Like nobody gives a shit about honor in the PU. There's no honor in dying, right? If you're going to lose like your character's attributes, or if you're going to lose all your components on your ship or whatever the hell it is, right? So if we're looking at it purely from like being in the PU, what's more important? Like fighting with honor and not backstrafing, or just surviving realistically?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think all that matters at the end of the day is like playing to win, right? So my issue with the system is there's not enough tools. Like right now, we have a tool, so it doesn't allow people to diversify. So I think who was it? Saint Nick's. He had a really good question. He said you can just do a side strafe. Back strafe is fundamentally weak because of the egg shape, not because of low
Mhm.
acceleration rates.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yes and
that's
no, right?
basically what I
Because
was
like
talking about though. The side strafe, it's
yeah,
like
but
strafing away from the pip.
correct. But see, what I mean by slow acceleration rate is I can't go forward 100% and then go back 100%. It's like you go forward 100% and then back 20% max. That in essence is low acceleration rate because it doesn't allow you to redirect your flow of travel. The other big trait with that, right, is like, how do I list this? I think the egg shape is a bad fundamental design because I think what makes fun is more of a cross shape. Being able to go forward, back, left, and right is more entertaining to me than just going in an omnidirectional to the front.
It was gonna say it looked like the yeah, there we go. Um Sorry, got a little distracted there. Was trying to figure out what
No,
was
it's
going
all
on
good.
with
I know I
the
froze.
camera. It's all good. It's all good.
Storm.
Um
So the solution to the twitchiness of that, we covered it earlier, but I know a lot of people are kind of getting on is just make it so that changing directions quickly increases G forces, so you can't do it infinitely. You eventually
yeah.
black out if you do it infinitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, too, to respond to what Nix is saying, yeah, that's exactly it. Like people don't realize. So I think this is the confusion of like the newer pilot as well, is that they think, I think the overall habit of like a new pilot is pushing forward but also strafing opposite the pip, and they think that they're pushing, and then they stop blaming the opposite person of back strafing, right? They're back strafing, not
Yeah,
realizing what
that
they're
happens to me all
doing.
the time.
Yeah, they
Yep.
don't realize what they're actually doing is, yeah, sure, you're forward acceleration into the person, right? Because you're looking at them, but when you're strafing opposite, what does that do? You know what I mean? Like people don't realize, and they think that the other person's the problem. Oh, this person's back strafing because I was forward on my acceleration the entire time. So yeah, that's absolutely true. That's what creates that extension, and that's what feels like it's a back strafe. Really, it's just you're kiting the person, you don't even realize it. You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why I wonder if part of it is too a lack of fundamental understanding by the dev team of how the physics work in their own game.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they think that, hey, if we give them more forward, maybe they can catch up, but they don't realize that giving them more forward is making them separate even more.
Yeah, I guess I
It
never
could
really
also
thought of
be
it like
like a
that.
lack of like a proper physics system that actually makes sense because they're creating things that contradict it all the fucking time,
Yeah,
Well, who's
yeah,
creating the
they don't
physics
realize.
now? Like, is it just like random like dev team, or is it somebody who actually understands physics?
Who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, I know.
But bro, if any dev ever watches this, which I highly doubt, maybe someone will clip it. But if your ship is not pointed at the enemy ship and your axis is even off by a little bit, you're pushing away, bro. There's even if you're going forward, you're pushing in the opposite direction.
Oh, hey, I just realized we have a live caller. Would you guys like to take that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm down for it.
Okay. I'm gonna drag in Starboy 89. Hey, Starboy, are you there? Welcome on in.
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing, guys? What's going on, winners?
Yo, what up, Marcus?
Hey, welcome on in. You had a question by chance?
No, I just wanted to think, not just think, but I wanted to ask you guys, like, what do you think about CIG going back to what we had, similar to what we had like 3.22, but making like an in-depth tutorial to really explain to people how to fly in the flight model, because I think for me that is the biggest issue, is they haven't ever taken the time to really, and I haven't been playing the game as long as maybe some other people have, but I started playing the game in 3.16, and in that patch there was no explaining the flight model to anybody. I had to, like when I said earlier, go on YouTube or go to someone's Discord to figure out how to turn on my ship. I had to ask in the game chat like how to do anything. But I do think if they go back to that 3.22 style flight model with some tweaks, because it's not perfect, but if they do that and they explain the flight model so people have a basic understanding of how to move their ships in combat, I think that it solves a lot of the issues. And then from there, you can have a very high skill ceiling. But if people don't want to necessarily go down the path of, being a combat pilot, they can at least have a basic understanding of what to do when they're being attacked.
I think what's going on with that is this current flight model fixed that issue by having the lower speeds, right? Because look how quickly people realized, hey, now I can see what's going on, but I can't get away. Like, how do I get out of this? And it comes back down to that acceleration rate. They can only go fast in one direction. So because of that, they feel stuck. And it's very easy to learn the game when you have a slow top speed. As a matter of fact, that was like one of the main things I would teach pilots is we'd be like, okay, we're gonna take all the principles we learned, but we're gonna put our speed limiter down to like 200-300, and people would pick it up quick because it's faster to realize when you hit the max speed wall faster. It's easy to realize, hey, I need to go another direction because this one direction ain't working nonstop.
And I want to jump to so basically Nightfoe here said Marcus makes a good point. One of the biggest issues is the majority of the players bitching about flight models also have single digit hours in flying because they're tourists that check out the patch then stop playing, but then they treat their feedback equal to people with hundreds of hours. Obviously I agree with that because can you imagine me playing golf for one day and then going up to Tiger Woods and be like, you got this all wrong, dude, you're doing this wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like obviously or me jumping into Spectrum posts about mining, knowing nothing about it and saying, I don't think it should be this way, it should be that way, but having no interest of actually mining to begin with. And by the way, I have not mined a single minute in the game yet. Oh wait, I have in prison. I guess I guess I have mine, but you see what I'm saying? Like, and then whenever I would come across a Spectrum post with somebody who was complaining and saying it should be A, B, and C, right? By the way, these people have been proving wrong because I've seen these same people complaining now about the arguments I originally made to begin with, but so on, so whatever. It's like when you argue, hey, but you spend no time flying, what makes you think that like your input is like 100% on point, right? Do you really understand the flight model? It's like, I should have to blah blah blah. So I agree with that, like that sentiment of the fact that like you spend no time understanding the mechanics to begin with, and then you're arguing what the mechanics should be. Not understanding, I think, simple mechanics like the fact that if you're pushing into the person, but also opposite the pip, people don't realize that creates distance. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a pretty simple concept. So I don't know. I just wanted to jump on that comment by Nightfall because it's true. Like, and I feel like I can't help but feel like the devs are the same people, right?
Even with that like lack of understanding.
I think they are. It's wild to me because we used to have a couple of devs that were really good pilots. They were obviously I can't say who they are, but they were in things like Liberty Reapers had a couple of them, and Black Fleet had a couple of them before they dissolved. But these guys were all phenomenal knife fighters who always gave really good feedback back to the team.
Yeah.
But the team was just like, "Hey, screw it, we're gonna do this." And we've had like amazing instructors who all experienced the very difficult high acceleration wiggle rates. And even though the wiggle existed and we all hated it, we still prefer the wiggle than what we currently have. Pilots like Zimmy, who like were the first foundation to like understanding flight back when people were learning about shooting over the rainbow and all these complicated terms. But it feels like everything is dumbed down since then to what we have now.
Yeah,
I think it is dumbed down because, like you said, there could just be that one player that I'm gonna log on for 2 hours this one night, like week, and I don't have the time to like go through like a tutorial phase again. Yeah. Or you just don't want to have to invest all that time playing an AC or joining an org and actually learning all that. It's surprising to me that even with the new flight model, CIG hasn't invested in like a tutorial for like AC to teach like basic movements to players and things like that, where they could benefit from understanding dogfighting one-on-one and all that other shit.
I mean, it feels like people are mad that they have to spend time learning something. What world do you live in where things are just handed to you? I'm going to get off on a tangent. All right, I'm sorry, Starboy, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to make an analogy. I don't know if you guys know anything about like racing, but there's a thing and there's a technique in racing called slip angle, where basically you're driving on the very edge of your tire's grip. You're not quite drifting, but it allows you to go around corners like very, very quickly. And what I tell my audience is like, the people who can do slip angle are like the highly skilled PvP people. Then everybody else are the people that need the stability management and traction control, or else they're going to spin their car out going around a corner. And what CIG has done is basically told everybody like, hey, everyone now has to use traction control and stability management because too many people are spinning out. And that's not fair to the people that have, trained, many, many hours to be able to do that certain skill. And that's what I attribute Master Modes to in its current form.
Yeah, basically, I agree. I agree with that. It's basically like, well, there's too many people that don't want to spend the time learning like the niche parts to get really high skilled, right? Because probably it wasn't their main gameplay loop to begin with. No. Which is like, so why would you expect to be like at the top tier to begin with? And by the way, I was laughing at one of Salty Mike's videos because he was like, one of his viewers says, I like that I can actually compete with the top tier players now. And he's like, or I still stand a chance. He said, but you don't. You still don't. He's like, the top tier, like, sweats will absolutely destroy you. He did now again.
The sweats will always win is what he said.
But but it's true. It's like still the people who spend all the time practicing are still going to be a lot better than you. But now I personally feel it's less enjoyable because there's a lot less options in the movement in the flight model.
I think the top tier sweats are people that are really good at aiming. Because if you look at the current flight model right now, the people who can take on like 1v3s against good pilots almost non-existent. Whereas in the old flight model, really good pilots could 1v3 a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Like I do agree that there should be a limit to that. Like before, it was like if I came across like 6 like just like average PU pilots, you could absolutely destroy them. Yeah, you just crush them. But I do agree there should be some limit to that, right? And I think the flight model was kind of in a decent direction of that, but I think they went too extreme. It's like
So
now
this
it's
is why we need a
I
PvP
would have to
slider.
disagree because I had an experience to where in the previous flight model somebody was camping Everest Harbor and they were killing a lot of players that were coming out, and he was like 1v10ing everybody, but eventually, through teamwork and everybody was bitching in the global chat, but I'm like, no, like let's all work together and figure out how to kill this guy. And by doing that, we're going to make this place safe for us and the other players that want to come here. And eventually, instead of getting everybody, to stop, bitching and complaining, I got everybody together and we eventually went and killed the guy. So we learned how
Yeah.
to, like, that was the time like I actually learned how to start, flying ships and doing things like that and flying correctly. Because I was booming and zooming, going right past him. He just merged on me and killed me. I had this like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to see what he's doing. I need to check his vector. I need to check my vector and make sure that I'm not pushing away from him. I'm actually pushing into him.
Wait, he was
So
booming and zooming though.
I was booming and zooming because
Oh,
I had
okay.
no idea what I was doing. I was just going, 1,200 meters per second in a Hornet, just flying right past him. But eventually, I was able to figure it out, and eventually, we were able to kill the guy. So I don't agree. I think that if you want to stop somebody in the game from killing you, you shouldn't have to ask the devs to help you. Players should work together to kill that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, but I do agree there has to be a limit because, like, 1v10ing is kind of ridiculous. Um, I think it can be doable to a certain extent. Like, I think being able to 1v4 is like probably the cap. But I mean, how do you measure that, right? Because skill is so hard to kind of grasp and coincide. But I think, like, again, it comes to a lack of diversity of ships being able to be used. Like, I don't know what the solution is, but let's say maybe we had score pieces with slow acceleration rates but really high top speeds, so that these freaking light fighters can't get away from you
Mm.
unless you're quick to react. Um, that's the issue we have right now is we have no counterplays to good light fighters. We have light fighters that are good and more light fighters. That's about it.
Yeah.
This is a question. Oh, yeah. There's a question from Nightfall. It says, "Do you think a flight model with a skill gap like 3.22 can make one person invincible is evidence of a good flight model, or is it that numbers plus skill can determine a victor?"
I think numbers plus skill will always matter the most, especially in teamwork. You do
Yeah.
need some form of skill. But I think it is
Yeah.
important to have a high skill ceiling so we can have these pilots that shine, right? Because what's one of
Yeah.
the major roles in Star Citizen that we want is the ability to be a mercenary. Who the hell would not want to hire the best pilots? Like, I mean, think about it. You don't have to mine, you don't have to play all these other aspects. If you're a PvPer, a true diehard PvPer, you can come into this game, be really good at it, and you can be like, I want to make my fortune being bought by different companies to fight. That doesn't exist right now because it's all about numbers.
Yeah.
Yep.
It has improved a little bit. I will say that. Like, so yes, it is
No, it
mainly
has.
about
It has.
numbers.
Yeah,
There
it
has
has.
been some improvement where before a recent patch, it was like if you were in a light fighter, you were just stupid. It was just you're making a huge mistake. And now
I think that was during the summer, right?
yeah, we were able to introduce now light fighters back into the mix of a team, and it was effective to have them as opposed to before. But it is still very highly favoring numbers over skill, I think. But skill definitely is more of a factor now. But yeah, there needs to be a good balance between both, right?
Yeah, but
Numbers. Oh, go
that
ahead.
I was just gonna say it ties back down to like what you guys were talking about earlier of like who the hell are they listening for these feedbacks, right? Because I remember when the Ion first came out, I thought that was the best thing to happen to Star Citizen. We finally had a ship that could nullify light fighters that had no skill, and you could still beat an Ion with a light fighter. It was impossible for an Ion to kill a light fighter if that light fighter knew how to knife fight. But the
Mhm.
thing is, nobody knew how to knife fight. They all knew how to do a circle, and those players were finally getting punished.
What's the bug on the Hornet right now? There's a bug on the Hornet. Hornet, or Scenic said Hornet is bugged, so the light fighters are viable again. Is
I
it
don't know that
bugged?
it's bugged. I don't know that it's bugged. I know
Yeah,
that it has the
The
wiggle.
turrets are kind of bugged right now at the moment.
Are
You
they?
can't swap out
what's wrong
any
with the
of
turrets? Are they not doing like enough damage or something?
in AC. In AC, the nose turret doesn't work currently.
Ah, gotcha. So yeah, it's missing like
Yeah,
a portion of its DPS.
but in like the PU,
Then
different story.
In PU it works. Yeah, see, that's not what I'm talking about. And also Nyx, I'm not talking about AC squadron battle against the fucking top pilots, like that know exactly how to use all mechanics. I'm talking about in general. I'm talking about like when you're in PU, if you were in a light fighter, it's like if somebody knew how to effectively just kite the hell out of you in any ship other than the light fighter, you were pretty much screwed before. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's necessarily true now. Like I think they made some adjustments to something. I don't know. I didn't know that the turrets were bugged because honestly, when I go into AC, I don't use the F7A at all. Unlike some lame pilots in this freaking chat who's always in it. Whatever.
Hey man, I love the F7. I love that ship.
No, but I mean, I only go into AC anyway, just to really practice my aim and stuff like that. Though, not to shit talk Nyx because he's obviously
honestly
he's guaranteed a better pilot than I am at this point. So
honestly, dude, my favorite fights are Saber versus Gladius. Especially if they're really good circle fighters. It's the only ship that allows me to knife fight.
Yeah, the Saber.
Yeah, going against it. When you're Gladius, it's the only ship where if you don't know how to knife fight, you're gonna lose every time. Because you have to push it. You have to be aggressive against it.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, you can work the Saber's like pitch in your. I think its yaw rate is actually better than its pitch rate, if I remember correct. I don't know, but I know you can work against it because it is rather sluggish as opposed to like the Gladius's pitch in yaw.
Yeah.
And that's one way to work it. But yeah, if they know how to really drag out and keep you in front of them, you're gonna take a beating realistically.
Yeah, that's why you really have to know how to stick to people because the thing with the Saber is it doesn't have the lifespan on boost as the Gladius. So if you're very efficient with your maneuvering and sticking on them, they eventually gas out and you can drain them because you also recharge faster than the Saber. So it's a little bit of a patience game and there is a skill ceiling to it.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that fight. But most pilots that lose to the Saber is because they don't know how to close the distance and be effective with their boost.
Yeah, the Saber can certainly be punishing though.
Oh, 100%, bro. You mess up, you're gone.
I had one question I was trying to find. Don't mind me, guys. My bad.
You're all good.
I was gonna say, was there anything else that you wanted to bring up, Marcus? Did you have any other like additional questions?
He left. He just dropped out.
Left. Never mind.
Yeah, he just dipped out. I don't know. He just randomly dipped out. We weren't talking to him, I guess.
No, that's my bad. That's my bad.
Sorry, dude.
No situational awareness there. Yeah. We did talk about the difference in master mode with team fighting now, correct? I think we slightly addressed that.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, we did.
Okay. Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to cover? Just wanted to make sure before you like wrap up anything. Is there anything that we feel like we may have missed?
No, I mean, I just again, go ahead, please.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm gonna look something up real quick while you go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say I do appreciate the team battling in general more than I used to in the old flight model. I do appreciate the fact that it's not like whoever has the most Gladiuses in a team wins. Like I like that there's more stuff coming in, and I had a hell of a lot of fun literally just piloting the Polaris while other people communicating amongst the other people on the Polaris on when to shoot the top off and what to aim at. Like it was really cool. That was an enjoyable time. Like, so there are things that I see coming together that I'm really having fun with. I would like to see the knife fighting and like the dog fighting in general just be more enjoyable as it used to be. Personally,
yeah,
like I miss the knife fighting feeling, like knife fighting, I suppose.
That makes sense. John, did you find what you were looking for? You were mentioning you want to share something.
No, we're pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, what? Oh, come on! You don't have
it. I thought I had something else, but no. We did cover it.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a tease, but okay. Or if we already covered it, it is what it is.
Well, I was gonna say. With that being said, John, thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you for setting aside some time this evening and talking master modes with us. And just, guys, if you haven't already checked out our guest, John Winters, make sure you go follow this link, go subscribe to him, go show some love that'd be greatly appreciated. And then if there's someone that you guys think we should send you over to in the form of a raid, let us know. Preferably someone with either a Star Citizen or like PvP background. And then just a reminder that tonight's episode will be on YouTube on Tuesday. And with that being said, you guys have a great night. And remember that PvP is griefing.
Do you guys want to go to Yo-Yo Meg? I mean,
PvP is griefing.
PvP.
Like
oh wait, I'm sorry.
like
We're
it.
supposed to end this, weren't we? Let me know. Yeah, throw it in the chat if you guys have somebody to raid out to, or we're just gonna raid you out to like the most bobbiest Bob you can find. Like we're gonna find somebody who's legitimately watching. We'll raid you out to somebody who's watching another person mining. So they're not mining; they're just watching somebody mine. All right. So like, I don't know if you can get any more. All right. Anyway, all right. You guys have a good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.